Well, it looks like we are live, and today we'll be talking with Andrew Malick, a very well respected developer here in San Diego. And looks like he is joining right now, so let me add. I'm really excited to talk with Andrew today. I actually I don't know much about you, Andrew, but I did a little research before getting on this call, and wow, you're quite the individual, and we're really lucky to have you here today. So I just want to say thank you for coming in, and thank you for doing this talk. And I'm really excited to hear and learn more about you and all your accomplishments and everything you've done here in San Diego. I could go down this list, but I think it's better for you to talk about it. So if you could just do a quick introduction to everybody, who you are and your general story of life right now.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Well, I am uh, sort of, maybe I'll start by saying I'm a product of the last recession. Um, and so, I started my sort of career as an engineer. I worked, I got an engineering degree out of graduate school, or excuse me, out of undergraduate, and went to work for a corporate general contractor. And after doing that for about 5 years, I realized I wanted to use my design chops a little bit. So I decided to go back to architecture school in about 2005 and stayed on and got an urban design degree and traveled all over the world studying urban places. I lived in Helsinki, Finland. I lived in Buenos Aires, Argentina as part of the master's program I did, and even did a semester in Tijuana, and graduated in 2009, which, as you can remember, was just absolutely an awful time to graduate and enter into the market. So I kind of had to find my own way. There was nobody hiring at the time. Um, I moved back from St. Louis to San Diego and literally uh, wa- broke my way onto a Jonathan Siegel job site and walked around and bumped into him, and he encouraged me to do an architect for developer program. And 10 years later, here I am. So
Yeah, it's quite amazing. I went through your list on your website, and you have some amazing degrees to your name. And then also, just knowing you, you have some amazing projects to your name as well. What made you take? I mean, you say that it's a shift from the times, but what sparked that interest uh, into going into the architecture field? Was it a talk with Jonathan, or was it just being the engineer and seeing that kind of side of life? What brought that spark?
well, admittedly, my father is an architect, and so I grew up around it. I grew up on job sites. I saw him when we were traveling, staring at walls and looking at columns, and just like with absolute wonder, and being totally fascinated by things that looked pretty boring to me. And so I kind of was forced to look into these innate objects and find pleasure in them. And it really didn't strike me that I was even suited to be an architect until about 7 or 8 years after I got on uh, out of my parents' home and realized that it wasn't leaving me, that was just part of who I was. So I knew that I didn't want to just be an architect. I knew that I wanted to do more than just be an architect. And sort of the architect developer mode of practice was something that was really attractive to me because it empowered the architect to make some bigger decisions. um, you know I'll say the other thing was, I went to urban design school, actually, sort of first. When I was applying to architecture schools, I was really looking at schools that had urban design programs. I was very, very interested in city making and place making, and bringing sort of the more walkable, European urbanism to the United States. And so one thing that I realized is the job of urban designer is kind of uh, really hard to get. There aren't many people that design urban environments. Um, it's really almost a theoretical exercise. And so the closest you can get is actually being an architect developer. If you're empowered to understand sort of the rules of financing a project, you literally can create small pockets of urban space and become your own urban designer. And so I think it's the combination of those things that kind of put me on the path of being a developer.
Yeah, we had Howard Blackson on yesterday, and he gave you a pretty nice little shout out as someone really making a big change here in San Diego. So, with all this being said and done, what would you call yourself an architect as a developer now, or would you call yourself more of an architect, or what role have you taken in on life right now in the whole scheme of architecture?
Yeah. So I technically can't call myself an architect developer because even though I, qualified and got all my hours, I never actually sat down and took all the tests. So um, at some point, during the process, I just realized that, in terms of return on investment and just return on my, you know, experience to the built environment, that maybe that wasn't the best pursuit for me. Not that I don't love design and will continue designing. Actually, design this staircase right behind me, but
Beautiful.
um, you know, it's sort of at a different scale now. I work with some of the coolest architecture firms. I think working in Southern California right now, Safdie Rabinus Architects. Miller Hall, Studio E, firms that I have tremendous respect for, and the principals at those firms, just they've been in practice so much longer that that I really do think that they produce a better work product than I can right now. And so the strength that I feel like I bring to these teams is the perspective of an urban designer and the perspective of really knowing the best place to put dollars in a project to maximize the return on design investment and quality of life for the occupants of our buildings. A good friend of mine, Jeff Svitak, who's an architect who you should have on, and incredible talent, honestly, one of the best single practitioners in Southern California, in my opinion. He always gets me and says, Andrew, when are you going to start designing again? When are you going to start designing again? Uh, and I do think that I will come back to it and start designing my own projects. Only one of the four developments I'm doing right now is a design that I did myself.
That's amazing to hear because I mean you do have beautiful buildings that you've worked on. I really suggest that everybody take the time to go on your website to see some of the projects that you've helped develop. Uh, some really beautiful projects here in San Diego, stuff that is really pushing the envelope forward with thinking of what we want as a community, or I shouldn't say we, I shouldn't speak for everybody, what I want for our community in terms of pushing the envelope forward with materials, use of space, function. I think it's really beautiful everything that you've been able to put out so far that you've been collaborative on. And it's really interesting how you speak on that terms of not needing to have your architectural license. I think that's a pretty interesting conversation that's being had, especially right now, as we all move forward with our knowledge of what it takes to get something passed through the city, what it means to be a team player, and where your role actually is in this field. Because we all go to school, we all find our knit, and we all go to school. We all hear about the planned kind of route that we go in, but you're able to break all that down, and you really found your niche. Kind of looking forward in your career, you talk with Jeff and you talk about designing more buildings. Is that something you see in your future? And do you see yourself going to get your license in the future?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think the short answer to that is I don't know.
That's a good answer.
uh, you know, I you can exercise your design chops in a number of different ways, and you know, honestly, a lot of architects start their careers, you know, working their way up from, you know, private commissions for doing single family homes. And I kind of skipped that step and started doing larger multifamily projects and commercial projects, um, you know, earlier in my career. Um, and I actually kind of, you know, because you don't necessarily need to be licensed to design single family homes, I kind of see myself hopefully in the future being in a position where I'm financially comfortable enough that I can, you know, go to that place and choose really, you know, the clients I want to work with and the homes that I want to develop, and you know, and totally invest myself in that product type. And so I think that like I'll kind of come full circle back to the place where I probably should have started, uh, and do custom homes. Yeah, my again, my friend Jeff Svitak did a project that he built in North Park that he moved into, and gosh, man, I am so jealous. I want a house like that.
Yeah, I hate to plug myself real quick here, but you know, I was able to work with Jeff and do a video on that on his Redwood house. And wow, that is again, I totally agree with you. I mean, it's just so beautiful, and the way that living is being expressed within that building is it's totally San Diego. It's completely San Diego. It's about being outside and about spaces communicating with nature and you know man if I could live somewhere right now, especially right now, that is definitely the place I'd love to live.
Well, hopefully that's a plug for a future episode because you should get him on your Instagram live.
Yeah, I know. You know, he's been a pretty busy guy, and but let's kind of focus back on you. What exciting things do you have going right now? I know as a developer, you've built quite a big envelope for yourself. Do you have a lot of projects in the process right now?
I have four projects currently in development. All kind of follow the same formula. You know, I told you earlier that I'm interested in sort of bringing a more walkable European style urbanism to Southern California. And so I've tried to claim the moniker in San Diego as of the transit oriented developer. All my projects are sort of adjacent to or literally on a transit line. Um, uh, I would say three of the four are literally on the transit line, and the fourth is within a quarter-mile radius. Um, I'm actually partnered with the local transit authority, MTS, in a joint venture, and a tax credit developer who's doing affordable housing project on redeveloping one of the parking lots that there's currently just a trolley stop with a big empty parking lot next to it, and so we're actually putting about 400 units is currently planned on just an empty parking lot, and it really is an opportunity for us to almost create our own little city. Actually, the irony is the name of this transit stop is in a neighborhood called Palm City, which is down near Imperial Beach in that sort of part of San Diego, just south of Chula Vista. And so there again, you know, I get to play the role of urban designer at a larger scale and really weaving together the different modes of transit. There's a bus stop, there's you know, a trolley line right there, and it's on a you know, separated bike trail that connects to the Bayshore Bikeway. So it's like, for me, it was like a dream project, and it was literally something that came to me in the weirdest way. I was asked to sort of comment on a policy for MTS about how they should partner with developers to develop transit lines, and I didn't even know that that was an option. So I said, "Hey, can I do one of these?" And submitted a proposal. So, you know, that is probably the furthest off, but one that's just sort of speaks to the core of my values and what I like to be working on, which is, you know, projects which, you know, reduce, you know, vehicle miles traveled, get people out of their cars. I want to be able to prove that people can live in San Diego County without a car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of your work actually focuses on helping to create these laws. If I'm not correct, am I right? You've done a lot of work with the city to focus energy. I mean, not just for your profit, but for the better of the city. Could you talk a little bit on that?
Yeah, well, I think one of the uh, if measuring the success of a developer is by how much money you make, I'm probably a terrible developer. But I tend to be more like an architect and choose projects that are really interesting, but maybe not extremely profitable. Um, you know, whatever. I probably have a mix of some that are profitable and some that aren't so. But that's just part of the nature of being a developer. And yeah, policy making is something that came to me in a weird way. You know, having studied urban design, a lot of urban design is policy based. I didn't get a planning degree, but there is a lot of overlap with urban design and planning, and so it came naturally to me reading municipal codes and city codes, and I just am very opinionated, and I had no problem walking into a city manager's office and telling them that their code sucks and that they should consider redoing it, and maybe that I would, you know, I could bring some development to their little city. Um, and you know, the the thing was, everybody that I spoke to and worked with was extremely receptive, usually agreed with me, and was grateful to hear my feedback. And so, you know, everybody likes it when somebody else likes your opinion. And so I think that I just kind of get sucked into doing a lot of pro bono work with some municipalities to help them, you know, make their municipal codes a little bit more attractive to, uh, you know, for developers to do projects there. And that's the case with National City. Their code actually, they brought me in at the tail end and of their downtown specific plan. And, you know, they had a tremendous code. I made a few red lines to it, and I was surprised that they took my comments and just incorporated them. And now I'm doing a project there. So it's kind of funny how it all works out. You know, a lot of projects come to you in weird ways. And if you're an architect, I would say, you know, that's definitely something you'd want to consider is, you know, you get to know your city managers, get to know the planning officials in some of these smaller municipalities. You know, a lot of them don't have budgets to really update or change their code, and they're grateful to hear any advice that you might give them. And who knows, maybe one day it'll turn into a project.
Any kind of advice going into a city? I know that especially as we all move forward, and we were talking with Howard yesterday about how kind of young San Diego and Southern California is in terms of development and in terms of creating laws and regulations right now. Do you have any suggestions for others that would like to emulate your path of how to talk with people in the city and how to bring up these ideas of density and transportation to fit their projects?
For me, it was kind of an interesting path. I would say my platform was the Urban Land Institute. I worked with a lot of local sort of land use nonprofits and sort of industry groups. As we met through the San Diego Architecture Foundation, a wonderful organization that I love to support. But the Urban Land Institute's an interesting one because it's really it's maybe a bigger tent than just a group of architects. It's planners, it's architects, it's developers, and so broadening your wings and really getting into sort of the bigger industry and starting to meet people there, that opened a number of doors for me. And so much so that, I was asked to join, the board at that institution and was asked to lecture on multiple occasions and sit on panel discussions. And when you're sort of on the stage in a room that's filled with people, if you don't say something really stupid, somebody might actually call you up and ask your opinion sometimes. And I would say that that happened to me a couple times. And so yeah, get involved in your industry organizations, whether it be the APA or the Urban Land Institute, not just the AIA. You need to branch out, and that'll help you a tremendous amount.
Yeah, I think something with you is attracted to the trolley. It's kind of funny. As we talked yesterday, there was a lot of trolley action today. It's none the same, and I think it's your energy is true to what you actually have to preach here today, and it's being supported by the trolley in front of my house right now.
Yeah.
But that information that you shared is really a golden book to a lot of people right now, as everything changes. So I really appreciate you touching on that. And moving forward with everything that's happening with the COVID-19, I know it's really early to say what do you think the trends are going to be and how do you think the world is going to change. But as all this develops, architecture uh, just thrives off the change. And right now we're going through one of the biggest changes since, I mean, maybe even more so than the recession. Uh, do you do you have any kind of thoughts on how this is going to affect development, on how this is going to affect architecture, maybe even transit as we move forward here?
Yeah, so I'm probably going to answer this in a way that isn't as direct. I will just say this. I started my company in 2011, 2 years out of grad school, product of the last recession. And my philosophy was if I just put myself in a place where I have no option but to succeed, I'll figure it out. Um, Graduating into the recession was the best thing that ever could have happened to me in my life. And I look at the conditions around us right now, and I think about the students that are graduating, and I think about the people that are sort of mid-career and trying to decide where to go next, that might have been laid off, that might have, and I will just say, that's the best thing that could ever happen to you. And this is a tremendous opportunity to reinvent yourself, to look around and say, hey, uh, I think I could build this widget better. And it's not always architecture. It might be you know, a new piece of furniture. It might be opening a store. It might be whatever. But the point is really that I'm no soothsayer. I have no idea what COVID's going to do to our society. I mean, there's a lot of people that have opined on that. What I do know is that um, this is a tremendous opportunity to reinvent yourself and to look around and just to sort of whatever you thought you were best at doing, now's the time to try it. I mean, we got tons of time on our hands. A lot of people aren't working right now, and so it's like, why not try? Why not try it? Why not start? Start now. Whatever that thing is, I think this is like just it excites me. I get giddy thinking about all the new businesses that are going to be starting as a result of this crisis. A result of people just sitting at home, bored, being like, sitting on the couch and being like, God damn it, I'm going to design a better couch. This thing's so freaking uncomfortable.
I love that you come to it in a very positive manner. I mean, obviously, what is happening is what is happening, but there is still the space to be held to stay positive. And again, like you said, focus in on what we can do to make it better. And this is why you are where you are today. You are a product, as you kept saying, of pushing forward, of inventing new spaces for you and becoming more useful as a person to the field that you want to be a part of. And, I really want to say thank you for coming on today and sharing that message of really what it takes to dig into something like you have and where all the different possibilities are that can be grabbed. So, kind of ending this up right now, if you have any kind of last closing remarks that you want to share, and then also if you could just share with everybody where they can find your website or any kind of media that you want to share with anybody to follow along with your work, I'd be really appreciative.
Yeah, so my website's malickinphil.com. I do have current projects and some past projects on there. Probably should hire a professional photographer like you to photograph my work a little bit better, but there's some pretty good images and renderings on there. Yeah, and honestly, I do try to get out and still speak publicly as much as I can. I think it really keeps my mind going. I will tell you, the other thing that I think has been hugely influential on my professional development is writing and being forced to sit down and actually write out sort of what I need to say when I speak publicly. Nothing is more fear-inducing than knowing that you're going to have to speak in front of a crowd and sound smart. And so, sitting, collecting my thoughts, and preparing for public lectures, it's those times when I think a lot of great ideas come out. So, yeah, I would encourage people to do that as much as they can.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, and have a great day. And I really look forward to seeing your projects move forward. I'm excited to see you push together more biking lanes. I know you're one heck of a biker, and I'm really excited to see what happens from it. Oh, that's a beauty. That's a beauty. I saw that you were out at Greer not too long ago, so we'll have to maybe find our way together there one of these days, and I can fall a little farther behind, but I'll see you at the bottom.
I'm sure you'd keep up.
All right, sounds good. Have a great day, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Ian.
Have a great day. Bye. Well, everybody, I hope that was really informative. That was really awesome for me. You never know where these conversations are going to go. And the information that Andrew shared with us was far and far and beyond the things that you learn in architecture school and the things that are typically talked about when finishing or during your degree. So I hope you all take away a little bit of information from him to go forward and really push the boundaries of what we think is possible. So again, stay healthy, stay safe, and join us tomorrow for another talk. And have a great day. Thank you. Bye.